Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, participants in person and participants online. And welcome to this breakout session, which is part of the 13th Policy Dialogue and Governance Meeting of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030. The topic of this breakout session is ensuring a systems approach in innovative teacher policy making and education development amidst emerging issues, experiences, and lessons learned in Africa. My name is Saliu Sal. I'm the Senior Program Coordinator of UNESCO IGBA. But before going into the session itself, I would like to remind you of some housekeeping rules we need to observe. Please, those who are intervening, who are not intervening, are requested to turn off their microphone and their videos. But if you are intervening, you can turn off your microphone. If you want to ask a question, if you are reaching online, you can post that question or comment in the chat. But participants who are participating from the room can take the floor directly. So I think, and I have to inform you that there is interpretation in French and English. So you can choose your language by clicking on the globe related to that. You can go to French or to English. So thank you very much again. This breakout session is organized by, jointly organized by the KIX Africa 2019 Consortium Partners, UNESCO IGBA, UNICEF ESARO, and the African Union Commission. We have also the collaboration of International Development Research Center, IDRC, Kenya. We also have Teaching at the Right Level from Zambia, Teaching Council of Kenya, Ministry of Education, Kenya also, and Ministry of Education and Sport, Uganda, Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, the Gambia. The lead partners, as I said, is UNESCO IGBA, UNICEF ESARO, and the African Union Commission. Today, in the session, we'll be discussing 3 to 4 topics. The first one is titled Encouraging and Sustaining Innovation and Experimentation Across the Educational System Through Teacher Policies and Coalitions in the COVID-19 Era in Kenya. This topic will be dealt with by Dr. Nancy Njeri Macharia, Commission Secretary, Chief Executive Officer, Teacher Service Commission, but she will be represented by Mr. Gabriel Matenge, Educationist and Personal Assistant of the CEO of the Kenya Teachers Service Commission. The second topic.
Hello, we're going to start in a few minutes.
Hello, Gardana, can you hear me?
The second topic is about making the development of teacher policies and pre-service teacher education curricula more innovative, evidence-driven, and inclusive in the COVID-19 era and beyond. The topic will be dealt in person by Professor Betty Ezati, who is here with us, chairperson of the task force of the establishment of the Uganda National Institute of Teacher Education, and Dean of the School of Education, Makerere University. Third topic is about ensuring quality in education systems while embracing innovations at scale in the Gambia, and it will be dealt with by Mr. Alpha Ba, who is present in the room, head of amidst and ICT, Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, the Gambia. I hope that Mr. Alfred Chilala, primary class teacher and zonal in-service coordinator, Muzoka Primary School, Zambia, will join us later to talk about understanding the role of civil society organizations and funding agencies in supporting innovation in teacher education and mentorship to accelerate learning in Zambia. Hopefully, he will be with us maybe by the end of the session. So to give you more information about the session,
please. Thank you.
to give you more information about the session, the Knowledge and Innovation Exchange KIX Africa 19 Hub. I have to let you know that we say KIX Africa 19, but actually there are 18 countries. Maybe later we'll come back to that. So it is a joint endeavor between the Global Partnership for Education, GPE, and the International Development and Research Center, IDRC. The purpose of the hub is to collect, generate, exchange, and facilitate the effective use of data, knowledge and innovation for education policy formulation and implementation among 18 Anglophone African countries in 6 thematic areas. Following are the 6 thematic areas. The first one is strengthening learning assessment system. The second one is about improving teaching and learning. Number 3, strengthening early childhood care and education. Number 4, achieving gender equality in and through education. Number 5, leaving no one behind. And last but not least, meeting the data challenge in education. The hub has been very instrumental in facilitating dialogical platforms and creating a shared understanding among the 18 member states in Africa. This to gain knowledge and skills for innovative, forward-looking, and research-oriented education towards strengthening national education systems and accelerating educational progress amid the COVID-19 pandemic and other related challenges. So to discuss this, as I told you, we have some experts I have already told you about. And to start with, we're going to the opening session, the welcoming remarks. We have actually 2 welcoming remarks. The first one will be addressed by Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, Director of UNESCO IGBA, the International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa. And we'll have also to hear from Mrs. Joy Nafungo, Senior Program Officer at IDRC. So both of them will be joining virtually. So I am wondering if Dr. Yumiko is online. Hello, Yumiko.
Yes, I'm online. Can you hear me?
Very good. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. So please go ahead for the welcoming remark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saliu. My name is Yumiko, and I work for UNESCO ICBA, International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa, UNESCO Category 1 Institute for Teacher Development in Africa. Good afternoon to all the honorable guests, participants, and organizers. Teacher Task Force for Education 2030, representatives from the Rwanda Ministry of Education and the Rwanda Education Board, dignitaries, government officials, and UN officers. It is a great honor and privilege to witness this diverse gathering of governments, multilateral agencies, academics, teachers, and practitioners from Rwanda throughout Africa and around the world. I have to ask for your permission to switch off my video because I just saw the line saying that my internet connectivity is fragile. So I warmly welcome you all to this session on innovation in teacher policy making and education development in Africa. Indeed, yesterday and today, we have been questioning the idea of innovation itself. We have been asking ourselves and each other such critical questions like, what is innovation in teaching? What is innovation in policymaking? How does innovation start? How does innovation spread? What do we learn from the process of innovating? It is my hope that this session furthers our inquiry and our understandings of innovation in teacher policymaking and the implementation of these policies through the rich examples of the African policymakers, teacher educators, and teachers in our session. Today, we will hear voices and experiences from Kenya, the Gambia, Uganda, and Zambia. These are all KIX hub countries. And today, we will think about how innovation impacts our education systems, how our education system change when people across the education sector innovate to improve learning outcomes. This session has been organized by the Knowledge Innovation Exchange, KIX, Africa 19 Hub. It is a joint project by the Global Partnership for Education, IDRC, and the KIX project is managed by UNESCO ICBA, the UNICEF SRO, Eastern Southern African Regional Office, and the African Union Commission. Now, we support GPE member countries by providing a platform for regional ministries of education, local education groups, and experts and the researchers from across a continent to mingle, share their experience and challenges, and learn together. It has been a very exciting process. These partnerships and these dialogues are our gateway to creating African solutions to African challenges and issues using African knowledge. Studies and the promising practices from Africa show that education systems can be resilient in the face of unprecedented challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic. Policy making itself can and should be an innovative, collaborative, and resilient process. Experimentation, reflection, critical thinking, creativity, and action research are not only for the 21st century's classrooms, but they are for policy actors and practitioners too, working across the education system. We all need to experiment, reflect, think critically and creatively, and engage in action research as leaders. We all need to listen to teachers, very important, the best innovators they are. Teachers and school leaders innovate every hour of every school day. The strengths of our education systems depend on our ability and willingness to do these things. Listen to teachers, experiment, reflect, think critically and creatively, and research our own actions. Thank you very much again to all the participants in Kigali and virtually here today. I wish you all a very fruitful deliberations and encourage you to ask questions and dialogue. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yumiko. Thank you very much for this insightful address, where we can find a range of lessons to improve the quality of our education system. Now I'm going to give the floor to Ms. Joy Nafungo, Senior Program Officer of IDRC. Ms. Joy, are you with us?
Yes, I am here. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you, Salia.
Good afternoon. Okay.
I am very happy to be part of this event. My name is Joy Nafungo. I work with International Development Research Center as a Senior Program Officer in the GPE KIX program. Let me start, distinguished guests, organizers, key education stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Thank you so much for the invite to be part of this panel discussion. I joined Dr. Yokozeki to warmly welcome you to this session, and I also deeply thank the International Teacher Task Force for inviting the KIX Africa 19 Hub to organize this panel discussion. And of course, I acknowledge the special presence of KIX focal points, KIX members, members of the KIX national delegation from the different countries that are a part of the Africa 19 KIX Hub. I agree that indeed teachers form the backbone of education systems. Teachers play a critical role in improving learning, and beyond any other school-based factors, teacher effectiveness is the most important predictor of student learning. Additionally, the relationship between teacher quality and teacher achievement strongly suggests that teachers' subject matter or content knowledge matters. And so GPE 2025, as some of you might already be aware, identifies quality teaching as a priority area and aims to invest in quality teachers and teaching in all partner countries. Within the GPE program, KIX program, we identified 3 important aspects that affect teachers. The first one is the quality of support to teacher development. The second one is teaching methods and learning materials. And lastly, systems for recruiting, managing, and engaging teachers. And so, to ensure KIX invests and continues to invest in supporting teachers, the KIX program funds programs that aim at building capacity through knowledge transfer. So for example, the Africa 19 Hub, building capacity of teachers, and also fostering learning exchange on issues where there is sufficient evidence base. The second focus for the GPE KIX program is building evidence and evaluation, particularly on what works, on topics where there are some solutions, but where more synthesis is needed to develop a solid base. And lastly, we also fund programs that focus on scaling innovations in teaching and learning, looking at approaches and topics where new thinking and solutions are needed. As we continue funding KIX programs, as we continue working with expertise, working on teaching and learning, working closely with teachers, teacher professional development programs, teacher mentorship and support, we are already seeing some of the emerging findings. And some of the findings, of course, not only focus on teacher professional development, but also teaching and learning as a whole. And some of them include, for example, the need to attract, and not just attract, but also the need to retain the best teachers, the need to deploy teachers where they are most needed. Also focusing on reducing unauthorized teacher absences, but also maximizing instructional time. And of course, lastly, involving teachers in policy dialogue and reforms. In terms of capacity building, we as GPE KIX, we as IDRC, and also on behalf of the GPE, we applaud the Teachers Task Force for drawing upon member expertise to produce the Teacher Policy Development Guide, which has assisted countries in reviewing national teacher policies to support the achievement of the teacher targets in both the Sustainable Development Goals and also Education 2030. And again, just to say that we as GPE KIX commit to continue working with key stakeholders, key partners to strengthen planning, to strengthen policies, to strengthen data use, and also to facilitate, to foster knowledge sharing around teachers, including the UNESCO ICBA, working very closely with UNESCO ICBA, working closely with UNICEF SRO, and of course the African Union. I want to thank all the panelists for accepting to be part of this discussion, and I'm looking forward to learning and engaging more. Thank you so much, and over to you, Salio.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Joy, for this brilliant opening remarks and for insisting on the key roles of teachers and their effectiveness, and also on the quality of teachers as priority areas. We note that also you emphasize the critical dimension that KIX Hub, GPE, and IDRC are putting the focus on. And I thank you for also insisting on the inclusive and participatory approach. Now, we're going to give the floor to our speakers. I have to inform you that our colleague Yvonne will be moderating the session. So please be reminded that you can post your questions in the chat so that she can convey. And Marianne in person will be backing. So the first speaker will be Mr. Gabriel Matenge, educationist and personal assistant to the CEO of the Kenyan Teachers Service Commission. He will be speaking on behalf of Dr. Nancy Njeri Macharia, Commission Secretary, Chief Executive Officer on Teachers Service Commission in Kenya. And Mr. Gabriel We'll be dealing with the topic, encouraging and sustaining innovation and experimentation across the educational system through teacher policies and coalitions in the COVID-19 era in Kenya. So Mr. Gabriel, if you are with us, I give you the floor. Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Gabriel.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. I wish to thank the organizers of this forum. And I also want to appreciate that all majority of us have been able to join either physically or online. I want to sincerely thank you for the invitation. I'd also give my sincere apology to Dr. Nancy Macharia, who was supposed to present this paper, but I also take the honor of presenting it on her behalf, and I wish it will meet the expectations. I would say that the topic was most relevant, and looking at the situation of COVID today, and bearing the fact that it is the same factor that has made us not to be able to travel to Kigali, the innovation cannot come in a better way, and like the time that our children, our teachers are doing everything possible to recover the 9-month, almost 1 year that children in Kenya were not in school. I want to say that in the advent of COVID-19, Kenya got its first positive test in March, early March, and by 15th March, the government of Kenya closed down all the schools, starting from ECD, the early childhood education, to the universities. It is the first time in the history of the country that we had ever gotten our school closed down other than the usual programmed school holidays. It was a dilemma, it was a confusion. The government did not have any strategy or any policy in place to handle such kind of epidemic. So as the days moved, there were no solution. We thought that things would come back better, but more and more cases of COVID-19 were reported in Kenya and making it almost impossible to think of opening the schools. And therefore, the government, the Teachers Service Commission, who are in charge of teachers, had to think aloud what innovative way you would put in place to ensure that there is learning continuity. In the country, we have generally online programs, basically radio services and education and TV channels that our Institute of Curriculum Development uses teachers to offer radio lessons and TV session on various subjects. So that was the first option, to see how to increase the participation of the learners on the radio. Also, in the public primary schools, the government had previously issued tablets to learners in every primary school, particularly focusing on early grades. And it was also the time for the teachers and the government to think how to reuse the tablets for more learning within the country. However, there was still challenge to do, or there was still problem with the connectivity, and therefore the issue of reaching every learner was still not very easy. And therefore, the government had to make an pronouncement where there was now need to think on how to remobilize or to mobilize the teachers who are at home and the learners. Our learner population for primary and secondary schools is about 12 million. And the teachers, we have about 330,000 all over the country. But the biggest challenge was to maintain the teachers on payroll, and at the same time, to encourage the teachers to prepare from their homes and they use various channels to reach the learners. And therefore, the government proposed an intervention on community-based learning. However, because of lack of policy to undertake such kind of community-based learning, the program did not take off well. And also the issue of the structures in place, how to meet while observing the COVID-19 protocols, it was challenging. But all the same, the government was able to bring on board several incentives to support remote learning, particularly to ensure that teachers are aware of the avenues that they can reach the children and the parents within the vicinity of their location, using various modes, including community structures like churches and administrative avenues of the government, the chiefs and the commissioners at various levels, to encourage learners and the teachers to continue learning. In the due course, the challenge of COVID-19 infection increased, and the resources to mitigate the challenges, including supply of water, detergents, sanitizers, was increasing, but the government was also providing. However, because the teachers were facing this for the first time, the Teacher Service Commission had to come with a way to mitigate and see how they can have their teachers get to understand how to undertake this program. With the support of GPE with the World Bank, we were able to undertake an exercise of preparing manuals and training materials, both to improve the teaching methodologies and also to encourage and to educate teachers on how not only to take care of themselves, but how to take care of their peers, learners, and even over psychosocial support to the community that will allow them. And we agreed with the GPE under the learning program to target 5 teachers per school. And so we had a target of training 150,000 teachers on remote learning methodologies. But because of the effort and the support we got, we were able even to surpass that target, and we were able to train 163,000 teachers. At least every public school in the country had a teacher who had knowledge on these methodologies. And therefore, we said that was a very good support that we got from the government, and it enabled us to have learning continuing, although still at minimal level. However, international schools in Kenya and some private schools in Kenya, which are a bit resourceful, were able to do better in their online teaching because some of them had already started remote learning even before the advent of coronavirus. What I would say is that the corona impact had both positive and negative aspects. I would say that there was a lot of learning loss during the period of the school closure. And the learning loss was so much that many children, a study was later to be conducted, and there was evidence that there was a lot of loss of learning. And when even the schools were opened, we undertook what we called phased school opening. We started with class 8 and Form 4, who were preparing for their national examination, and gradually the other students, the other classes came back. However, what is eminent is that there was many learners who did not come back to school. Quite a number of them came back or trickled back slowly. And of course, the time they were out, the prolonged time, some went into undertaking some economic activity like fishing and others farming and little other business in the market areas. And of course, there were those vulnerable who some went for early marriages, others got pregnancies, and they could not come back to school. But what was important is that during this time, teachers were able to take the new teaching methodologies. They were able to use both asynchronous and synchronous approaches to reach out learners and also their parents. We also observed that the increase of use of radio programs went very high from that percent 2019 to 43.3% in 2021. And of course, the government was more keen on how to improve online learning and also how to create more digital content. In particular, as Teacher Service Commission, we have initiated teaching programs that will give teachers more skills and capacity to be able to face such pandemic in future. And our programs are already starting. And we want to say that it is within this situation that we recommend, and the innovation in the teaching should be more developed, and the teachers should use more skills, or should get more skills on how to have the alternative modes of learning to be able to prepare themselves for any other future pandemic. So use of available materials and created materials that are found online. Some are free, some can be uploaded. The teachers themselves becoming more creative in making digital resources would be the best option for the future of our country. And so,
Mr. Gabriel,
yes.
Can you wrap up,
Yes,
please, in 2 minutes? Can you wrap up
Yes.
in 2 minutes, please? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So what I would say that we learned a lot of lessons, and we want to think that the government will take this opportunity to improve on our policies, become more innovative in offering the education. We call upon our fellow Kenyans and Africa in general to be able to focus more on the ensuring continuity in learning, the safety of the learners, and equity, so that all the groups in our country can be able to access education. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to stop there and say thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gabriel, for this informative presentation. Thank you for setting up the contextual background about the measures taken in Kenya at the outbreak of the COVID-19 to ensure that teaching and learning continues. You have also shared the challenges faced both by the public education system, with its 12 million learners and 330,000 teachers, and also the private sector. You have shared challenges about the economic, social, and financial aspects, as well as the innovative approaches or strategies set forth to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19. The impact are positive and negative. And finally, you have shared us some takeaways. So thank you very much, and our regards to Dr. Nancy Njeri. Now I'm going to give the floor to a speaker in person. She is beside me. She is Professor Betty Ezati. As I told you, she is the chairperson of the task force of the establishment of the Uganda National Institute for Teacher Education. Acronym, it is UNITA. I was saying Unite, but she corrected me. So Professor Betty will be dealing with the topic, making the development of teacher policies and pre-service teacher education curricula more innovative, evidence-driven, and inclusive in the COVID-19 era and beyond. So Professor, you have the floor for 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to share with you some of the activities that UNITE has undertaken in its attempt to reform teacher education. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so I start off by just speaking about a bit of a context on teacher education in Uganda. Just like in many African countries, there are challenges around teacher education in Uganda. First of all, the training is undertaken in many different institutions. So there are issues of standardization of the products that come from the different teacher training institutions, as well as the issue of quality. How do you actually ensure that the quality from A is the same as the quality from B? And yet these are people going to teach the same children in the schools. Then there are also issues of teacher management, issue of registration, issue of licensing, code of conduct, conditions of service. These are all issues that were pointed out as problematic in teacher education in Uganda by a study that was undertaken in 2014. And so in light of those challenges that were identified in 2014, the government of Uganda passed a policy, the National Teacher Policy, in 2019. And this policy prescribed very many things that is supposed to be put in place to ensure reform in teacher education. One of it is that all teachers, irrespective of the level you're teaching in, must be at bachelor's level. We currently have training in the colleges for certificates, then diploma level, and then degree level. Now that is supposed to stop effective this year. And so one of the things in the teacher policy is that there should be an entity for training teachers established, and that is UNITE. Secondly, the recommendation in that policy is that there should also be a national teacher council that will be responsible for challenges to do with teacher management, and that is still in place. So I'm going to share more about the Uganda National Institute for Teacher Education, and specifically issues to do with the curriculum development experience that we've gone through. Next slide. So as you can see from the slide, the overall goal of UNITE is really to improve quality of education, but also quality of teachers. And this is through producing competent, innovative, effective, and professional teachers, as informed by the TISA report. That's a report that highlighted many of the challenges around education and teacher education in Africa, and as well as what is in the Sustainable Development Goals. And how are we doing this? One, we are having a competence-based academic program as well as continuous school practice. Currently, we have school practice where you go at the end of the semester and then go again. And when we had closure of schools in March 2020, we've had challenges with school practice. And so we are now thinking around continuous school practice to improve teacher practice. And then we also have in plan a one-year internship. So after the training, you go for one whole year in schools to practice teaching, as well as mentorship when you're there. Secondly, the issue of continuous professional development is now key. And this is going to be done by UNITE in collaboration with the National Teacher Council. So the two bodies will work jointly to ensure that all teachers go through professional development. And this is supposed to be a requirement for them to get licenses. So licenses is going to be every 2 years. Right now you qualify as a teacher and forever you're a teacher. There's no checks. But now there's going to be a check every 2 years. You ensure you do CPDs and you use those CPDs points to get licenses and continue teaching. Thirdly, UNITE will also provide professional and technical support to the TTIs, that is teacher training institutions, as well as Minister of Education in all aspects to do with teacher education and accreditation in the country. So those are some of the ways that it's going to be done to improve teacher education in the country. So what did we do as UNITE? Next slide. We started off by identifying this teacher profile. Can we go to the next slide? Yes, Uganda has a teacher profile, but then we still went ahead and say, what kind of teacher do we really need if we're going to move away from what is described in the report of 2014? And so in our discussion before the writing of the programs, we brainstormed on the type of teacher we need. And this was collaborative. It wasn't just us. In the process of writing the curriculum, we worked with the university teacher educators. We also worked with teacher educators in the national teachers colleges who are going to be implementers of this curriculum. And so we did agree that we need a teacher who has knowledge and values that are relevant for the 21st century skill. This person must be an expert in content, because without content, you can't really deliver anything, but also a pedagogical leader, ICT literate, an innovator, a problem solver, and also a hands-on practitioner, so that whatever you learn in the class, you try it out. And that is why there's continuous school practice attached, so that they're able to go to the schools and try out what they would have learned. And above all, a researcher and a reflective practitioner. Research hasn't been so important in our teacher education, but now we are saying this is a priority, because a teacher must be somebody who researches on his or her own practice in order to improve. Next slide. So these are some of the things we considered as we're writing the program. We ensured that the curriculum is aligned to the teacher education philosophy, as well as the pronouncement in the national teacher policy. We've also included research in all the courses, but also as a standalone compulsory course. And so whoever gets into the teacher education institution will at least get some research methodology course. And the expectation is that they will be able to use that course as they teach when deployed. And thirdly, we have cross-cutting issues that are incorporated in the curriculum. And this includes gender. ICT is a compulsory course, but also included in other courses so that its use for pedagogy is strengthened, and then environmental issues as well as special needs. We have now sign language as a standalone course in that program as well. And then we have also agreed that as much as possible, we promote Afrocentric values in the curriculum. Next slide. So what is the nature and the character of the UNITEP program? One is the vocationalization philosophy. Our understanding is that our learners should learn, believe in what they've learned, teach or practice what they have learned. So this is embedded in the curriculum. And so the design of the curriculum is such that you have class time, you have tutorial time, you have practice time. And all this is supposed to reinforce vocationalization of education. Secondly, it's learner focus, it's competence based. And so we're moving away from the teacher know-it-all and standing in front of the class and telling them to letting the students actually participate actively in this. And for us to be able to actually effectively design a competence-based curriculum, the task force actually attended one of the KIX training, and that was very helpful in enabling us to guide the writers appropriately. Alignment, so close alignment to the primary school curriculum as well as the secondary school curriculum. We've also ensured that is in our curriculum. And it's blended, COVID has taught us. So we're moving away from having just a face-to-face curriculum to having a blended curriculum where you have on campus as well as off campus, especially given the fact that some of the participants or some of the students who will enroll for this program as teachers already in the schools, and we don't want to break the learning processes in the schools. And so the blended approach will be very relevant to this category of people so that they learn as they continue teaching. We are emphasizing regular review of program. Our study showed that some of the curriculum that are currently used in teacher training have taken long to be reviewed. And so we're saying this must change and we have to have continuous review. And finally, assessment. From Uganda, usually the summative assessment carry more marks than the continuous assessment. And so we've turned this around and we're saying for this particular program, continuous assessment will be 60% because the learning that takes place in the 17 weeks is more than the 3 hours. And so if we are able to track and actually assess for learning, then we're going to ensure that the product that gets out are actually people who have mastered the things that we would have taught in class. Next slide. And so what are some of the achievements and impact? This is still work in progress. But we've completed the science program, and this science program has already been submitted and is waiting approval. For us to implement this curriculum, the National Council of Higher Education in Uganda must approve it. And so this program is for accreditation right now. We've also written policies related to implementation of this program. Others are still pending, but we've done some few already. And since we work together with the universities to write this curriculum, we've seen that universities, even before they're told, are already beginning to review their programs so that it's aligned to the national teacher policy. And then there's high expectation in the community, but also anxiety among the teachers, because they're wondering, how do I actually go and upgrade my qualification? The policy gives them 10 years. Within 10 years, you must have moved from your certificate level to degree level. So what we've done is to ensure that we continuously provide sensitization and training to the teachers, so that we allay the fears that they're currently having. Next slide. And finally, we've actually learned through this. We are still learning. As I said, it's work in progress. We haven't finished writing humanities. We haven't finished writing vocational education. But one of the things we've learned is, this need for continuous training and sensitization of current teacher educators who are in the schools or in the institutions that are offering certificates and diploma, because it's in these institutions that this new program will run. And so continuous training, continuous sensitization is important for buy-in, but also to enable them begin to adjust their pedagogical practices. The writers as well needs training. You can't just assume that they're able to do that. And I already spoke to the KIX training that helped us to guide the curriculum writers appropriately. Stakeholder engagement is critical. We worked with a group of teacher educators, so it wasn't us alone. And we've had teacher education working group meeting to look at the whole curriculum. We've done that several times, and they've provided input in the curriculum. And that, I think, convinces us that people have bought in, people have owned this program. And above all, the national teacher policy provided guidelines that made it easy for us to go about this curriculum development. So in conclusion, reforming teacher education requires concerted efforts, and a clear policy eases things, because when they ask you, you just look at the policy and see what the policy is specifying about the issues that you are emphasizing in the curriculum. So it's good to have a policy in order for you to effectively reform teacher education. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Betty Ezati, for this presentation full of information. I will start by where you finished, the relevance of teacher policy, which is a key if we want to really improve the quality of teaching and learning. Thank you for sharing the context and the challenges and the overall goal of UNIT, which is to improve the quality of education and teachers through producing competent, innovative, effective, and professional teachers. I think these are very important elements. And also, what are the strategies that you use to reach those results? You have also described the UNITE program and also the achievements you have reached, as well as the impact and the lessons learned and the recommendation. So thank you very much. I hope the participant will come back to you with questions and comments. Now we're going to the third speaker, who is also present in the room. He is named Mr. Alpha Ba. Alpha Ba is the head of amidst, Education Management and Information System and ICT in the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education in the Gambia. Mr. Ba will be talking to us about ensuring quality in education systems while embracing innovations at scale in the Gambia. So Mr. Ba, you have 10 minutes to introduce your topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salusal, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening if you are online. I am going to take you through our experience in the Gambia, actually in terms of how we have been using innovation. And this focus in the presentation around the barometer that inform policy, the data system, how do we cascade it from the management level to down to the grassroots. So if you go to the next slide. Now, actually, you may know that education policy or generally policy development depends so much on the kind of quality data and the timeliness you have. So in the Gambia, for like any other country, from the education for all MDGs to SDG now, since 2000, our education system data that was informing policy was based on just the access indicators, gross enrollment ratio, completion rate, and then we have challenges of what about the teachers, what about learning outcome and things like that. So there was a need to really start rethinking from the data process that informed the policy to have a scale. So that's why we could see that generally in the context of data system in those days, in the past 2 decades, it has been like every year you publish tables and graph of statistical yearbook. That is very general for everybody. That's right. That's what we've been doing over the years since 1980s. And by the time the SDG 4 is here, we've been asked to collect more data and our system has not been ready. So we cannot get better policies if we are collecting the same kind of data, aggregate data, without having granular, lower level data that inform the specific dates we need. So then that's why we could see that over the years, even if you look at the UIS report, inclusion data, learning data is still a gap for many countries, including my country. But we have to start changing that. And the process of data collection has always been around, driven from the central level. In my country, for example, the director of planning collects data from the school and then make a yearbook and share it with the policymaker at the macro level. So what happened to the micro level? So how do you go to the micro level without that to change innovation? That's why we have challenges like indicators such as national language is new. If you want to deploy teachers around national language, what data informs you? Which ethnic teacher, which teacher, for example, in my country, which Wolof teacher are you going to send where? The data is not there. The system is not ready. So then teacher deployment is hampered because of the kind of data we collect. As a result, when it comes to what child needs what, or how ready are the children are for learning, the data is still blank. Since 2016, when the SDG 4 was formulated, we still have those data gaps. So that's why with the advent of COVID, the problem becomes more acute, more exacerbated. So we have a huge challenge right now. Now on the next slide, we'll just share how in the Gambia we have been able to move this. But one of the things we realized was that low level of data use and data literacy was a challenge. In other words, data literacy and data utilization was only at the central level. Planning unit, planning focal point, there was no data use at the regional and cluster and the school level. So the data was, no policy was driven from the grassroots. So what we did now, and like I said earlier, the availability of data in terms of the statistical yearbook does not help. So we needed to move further. We needed to make sure that we include the teachers. So that's why in the next slide, we will see how we have been able to have school improvement planning. So here, school improvement planning is the same as a planning directorate that used to be at the central office. There is a planning directorate that collects data for the management of the education sector service delivery. If they were collecting data, we were collecting data, or year in, year out for calculating of indicators. But now to innovate the process to ensure that it's cascaded and it's decentralized, we needed to ensure that school level, there is some kind of planning and improvement. So what we did in our education sector policy, 2016-2030, we made sure that every school has a school improvement plan, which means the school will now develop their own indicators, their own target, and they collect their own data and they start using it. So now that is increasing the literacy of data, knowledge of data. So we built tools in our school management manual, and then we shared it to all the head teachers and said that before you wait for the planning director to come and collect data, and then take it back to the central level, process it and bring it back to you, you have to start developing what we call school improvement plan. Now, this school improvement plan was very useful. There was a minimum standard established for the school improvement plan. There was basic indicators highlighted in this minimum standard that says that it has to be consultative. The head teacher and his senior management team, including school management committees, the parent-teacher association, representative of the community, and representative of the students are part of this school management committee. They develop the target, for example. They would say that we will make sure that by the end of the year, every child will have X percentage in their learning outcome. But we will need X resources to do that. Therefore, we need to do X activities. That is the plan that goes to the regional director. and it is endorsed. And therefore, the learning out the school improvement grant. Next slide. The school improvement grant, which is where government is now building a financial resources for that. Now the financial resources is given from the school government, from the account system, based on the school improvement plan. In other words, the school committee develop their plan with their indicators and their target and their budget. Then it goes to the management level and say that here is my plan and I need X amount of dollar. That is going to be based on the school improvement grant. Now the school improvement grant is disbursed to the school now. Now what happened now? They start implementing their school plan. So in other words, we allow going back to teachers. If we are talking about teacher autonomy, we had yesterday and over the week that schools are unique, teachers are unique, everybody is unique. Therefore, we need to allow them to decide, and we need to involve them from the beginning. We need to make sure that they design their plan. It's no more. Yesterday they said, you cannot design an innovation outside the classroom and expect the classroom to do it. Similarly, you cannot design your school improvement plan, your school improvement grant, and give it to the teacher, but allow them to do it. So this is what we are trying to do in the Gambia. And as a result, we started having the data gaps we are getting. Over the years close, teachers are now, school are now, because it's linked to school improvement grant. On the next slide, you will see that we make this kind of report, but on the next slide, we call it the school report card. Next slide. Now here is the community report card. This is what is based on the outcome at the end of the year. The plan that the school developed, now here is the outcome. But what is important, one more step, I just want to explain the other innovation we have in terms of integration of data. The report card has finance data, budgeting data, it has examination data, it has learning outcome data, it has planning data. So what we are doing here is to ensure that all these units and directorates come together. Now there is a relationship and a quality check between it. In other words, if the school didn't provide its plan, it will not get funds, SIG. If the exam department didn't provide their data on time, they will also not get their disbursement. So if the planning didn't collect the data and prepare the report, then the plan will not be developed. So there is a whole system change. Everybody is now trying to do one thing because there is a relationship between it. So I cannot just sit and not do my work because my work impacts other people. And eventually I will be told you are the one, that's why school improvement, this is not done. And the community will sit, you can see the photos here, where the community now sit. This is explained in the form of graphics so that it can be explained in a local language so that the community can know the performance of their school vis-a-vis their region, vis-a-vis the whole country, and vis-a-vis the resource envelope. So this is very, very useful in terms of social accountability at the community level, encouraging participation at the community level, and ensuring that there is some kind of process and work. Next slide. Now, on top of that, we were able to help improve, move also to have build classroom observation tool. We heard about that yesterday, how teachers can observe each other. And in addition to that, we also ensure that teacher deployment is linked to technology so that teachers who used to go to the regional office to get their deployment, they can now use their mobile phone and they can use mobile phone to report attendance. So these are all ways of transforming the process and reducing the burden on the teacher. On the next slide. Now, this is the challenge, the key takeaways and the recommendation. We know that the issue of the policy and data is like the chicken and the egg issue. Better policies give you better data give you better policies. So that's why you really have to have that in the first place. And then involving the teacher, school level data can only be driven by teachers themselves. Since 1980, we used to go and collect data and use it and give it back to them. But now that we allow them to collect it, we allow them to do it at their classroom level, we think it is a way to go. Now, education planning and policymakers should build whatever you are doing now, whatever the education planning department needs to be built around the school level data. So in other words, the image questionnaire we are collecting annually, we are now going back to harvest it from the school level data. We don't have to create our own new questionnaire. We just come and collect the data system from the school data so that there is some kind of corroboration. Now, increase the literacy of the teachers in terms of the use of data. You know, this is something very important. If teachers are not using the data for classroom reason, for school level reason, forget about it, they would not participate. Now, we have to have this kind of champions in the schools. And then we have to make sure there is a linkage between what directorate or unit, whatever you do, how it connects in another directorate in terms of the issue of the school report card, the exam data, the budget data, the socio-economic data. These are all coming at different times because you cannot expect all of these directorates are doing at the same time, but because they are linking to each other, they have the knock-off effect, which is very useful. And then the last slide, which is the conclusion. To ensure that we have better policies, we really ensure that, and our system is resilient, we need to make sure that we have teachers their role in the data and policy need to be reimagined. We don't have to give them data, they have to give us the data. Now, and then we have to build an integrated system that requires involvement of the other sectors, because now we are going granular. We need individual ID data. Now, if you need individual ID, you need to start linking your birth certificate, your health and nutrition data from the health department with your learning out, with your admission register. Now, Ministry of Education cannot do that alone. You have to go to health department to give you the birth certificate report. You have to go to the nutrition department to give you nutrition data. That way you are able to get other data. You have to go to the Ministry of Finance to give you other data. Then you are able to get a comprehensive report in terms of the policy direction you want to go. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Alphaba, for sharing us experience about from the Gambia about the education system. Thank you for providing information on how amidst data drive education reforms in the Gambia and also the challenges related to the low level of data use and data literacy. You have also mentioned a plan that is set up to address the developmental needs of the school plan, and that plan is inclusive and participative, which is very important. You have insisted on the sharing the school report. You have shared the school report cards that help share information and ensure policy dialogue and community engagement. And finally, you dealt with takeaways and recommendations around the critical importance of collecting data and using them efficiently. So thank you very much. I don't know if the next speaker is around. Very good. So the next speaker is Mr. Alfred Chilala, primary class teacher and zonal in-service coordinator at Muzoka Primary School in Zambia. Mr. Alfred will be talking to us about understanding the role of civil society, organizations, and funding agencies in supporting innovation in teacher education and mentorship to accelerate learning in Zambia. Mr. Alfred, can you hear us? Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Alfred.
Hello, sir.
Welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you so much. All right. To start with, may we go together to the first slide, where we'll talk about the context of the challenge that needed an intervention. And then I will try to be a little bit quick in the interest of time. Low literacy levels in the country, which was seen to be both curriculum and policy direction. And this affected, or the affected were teachers due to the following issues. The first one being inadequate pre-service training in literacy and numerous instruction. And the second one is curriculum not sufficiently focused on the literacy and numerous instructions in early grades. The third one is inadequate provision of in-service training in literacy and numerous teaching methodology. The fourth one is inadequate provision of appropriate reading materials. And 5 is half-hearted attempts at developing primary language skills in literacy. We may move to the next slide. So the challenges continues. Again, one of the challenges were low reading levels in early child education. And this one was evident from the literacy situation in Zambia survey findings of baseline study for primary reading program, or PRP, and this was conducted in 1999. So among the noted things were that grade 1 to 6 learners that were tested, majority of those who attempted to read at 2 grades below grade level in both English and their own Zambian languages. And at grade 5 National Assessment Survey of 2006, 2008, 2010, and also the early grade reading assessment, which is IGRA. These are surveys that were conducted, and all they reflected stagnating low learning achievements below 40%, with 35.3% in English and 39.4% in Zambian languages. So again, another survey which was conducted was the Southern African Consortium for Monitoring Education Quality, or SECMEC, of 2010, which was conducted, noted that among grade 6 learners that were tested, only 27.4% read at a basic competence level. Next slide. So talking about the innovation or practice and the policy itself. So this one was clearly a wake-up call for the Ministry of Education to realize drastic measures that were needed to be put in place to create an environment necessary to improving learning achievements in both literacy and numerous. So this resulted in the revision of the curriculum by the ministry in 2013 from primary reading program, the old program, which is PRP, to primary literacy program, PLP, to address the noted challenges of low literacy levels. However, the learning achievements in literacy and numeracy were still not quite impressive. So the government resolved to come up with other programs that would supplement the revised curriculum needs as interventions. So coming on board was JPAL, working with Pratham Foundation from India as partners, whose catch-up program conformed or well conformed with the Zambian National Revised Curriculum, hence signing a memorandum of understanding in 2015 with the ministry, thereby creating a catch-up working group. This brought about a paradigm shift in the manner in which literacy and numerous teaching was to be done, more importantly in terms of offering remediation to reaching all learners of different abilities. Next slide. So talking about the innovation itself and the policy, this continues that the curriculum innovation bordered on 4 key result areas for effective lesson delivery, which conforms with 4 core principles in the catch-up implementation process, which was the new innovation that the government undertook. These are planning, teaching, assessment, and remediation. So you will find that these 4 key areas are in conformity with the key result areas that teachers have to undertake in their everyday lesson delivery. So this makes the innovation responsive to the challenge. The innovation take care of the results obtained from assessments as the basis of helping learners in need areas. The innovation is structured and formalized with specific concrete locally produced materials and activities aimed at addressing challenges learners are faced with in conceptualizing the content. Learning there now is seen to be maximized through approaches such as play, peer, and interaction. So to add, these are the things that the innovation is trying to address. The activities that are involved are user-friendly. There are things that learners can do as they are learning in a classroom situation, taking it as though it's just fun, yet they are learning something out of the lesson which is being taught. The next slide. So from inception, from the time when the innovation was just introduced in the country, the table there shows the results by year as evidence showing the innovation promising signs. So this was the indications that the innovation was really working. Okay, so if we follow closely, you will find that in November 2016, when the innovation was just introduced, 40 schools in Eastern Province and 40 schools in Southern Province did the pilot and the following were the results under the three major assessments that are being done in this innovation. So we have baseline, midline, and there was baseline and endline assessment. So as you can see there, under baseline assessment, we had about 40%, and endline at the end of the pilot of the innovation, the results improved by 7%. And that was with learners that were able to read at least a simple paragraph. But for learners that were able to do subtraction, the percentages were 37%, and at the end of the endline assessment, it was seen that there was at least quite good improvements where the results that were recorded was 50%. So we can make a calculation from there on the percent increase from 37% to 50%. That was in Eastern Province. Southern Province, the two major assessments again were conducted for literacy from 40% to 55% as of baseline assessment. In numerous, from 35% to 51%. Okay, that involved about 240 schools. 35% progression rate increased to 56% as of endline, 27% as of baseline, and at endline, 51% was recorded. The next slide. So, in view of the results that I've just given, the Ministry of Education was not just doing this innovation all by itself, but of course with the involvement of the civil society organizations as well as the funding agencies in supporting the innovation in teacher education and also offering mentorship to teachers. So among in short, we are saying the role or the critical role that was offered by the civil society organizations as seen to be instrumental in coordinating with the Ministry of Education, it was to supplement government's effort by providing services such as material printing and distribution from central to grassroots level by, for example, a civil society organization, the VVOB, in Flemish, which stands for Education for Progress. Capacity building of teachers and other stakeholders with the catch-up innovation, or rather the methodology, which is teaching at the right level or TAO, at local school and central levels of education systems for policy recommendations. Number 3, assessment and data collection, data analysis and data management was also, it was the role which was being carried out by the civil society organization to help in coming up with the informed decisions about which schools, zones, or districts needed mentorship, support most. Number 4, the other role that was being played by the civil society was to provide coaching and the mentorship skills to school mentors and managers. It was also their role.
Alfred, can you wrap up in 1 minute or so, please?
Okay, all right.
Please.
So budgeting, organizing, and processes of logistics for all the trainings undertaken. And also providing services to hard reach and marginalized groups in ways government cannot reach. Next slide. So the recommendations therefore were that having been given a clear picture on how the innovation performed, even at classroom level, talking to my experience as a class teacher, I came up with the following recommendations to say teaching is dynamic, hence the need to change the manner of doing things in order to move together with the rest of the world in meeting the demands of the changing world. And also focus must be on learners learning to read, write in early child before reading to learn in their higher progressive levels of education. So the need for educators to unlearn certain old teachings habits seem not to be helping learners in achieving specific learning outcomes in order for them to learn new innovations that would be of help to learners. So what we are talking about here is that there's no need to take it for granted when we are teaching these learners as teachers. There are specific things that we can handle that are perceived to be minor, but they are of great importance to the young ones in regard to the innovations that are being brought, especially to the catch-up program or innovation. So my recommendations that governments should have clear policy direction on school curricula. And also government should ensure embedding the innovation, or rather the catch-up in all schools, PDs, CPDs, strategic and action plans by way of making it a school remedial work policy. So that is that. So those are the recommendations. The innovation is seen to be working from my point of view as a class teacher, of which the Ministry of Education in Zambia has taken that direction, that the program or the innovation be part of the CPDs in all the schools, in all their culture, in all their strategic or action plans. It should be there as a way of providing remedial to our learners because of the nature in which this program is, because it's something which is formalized and which is even structured, unlike how it was being done even before the coming of this innovation. In concluding, for more information, the details are in the last conclusion slides, where you can contact the Ministry of Education through the Permanent Secretary, Teacher Education and Specialized Services, Box 593, Lusaka, Zambia, or using the email down there, Ministry of General Education.information@ministryofgeneralalinformation.gov.zm. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Alfred. We take good note of the contact you have shared, and hopefully participants will continue, will contact you through that contact. Thank you for the awesome updates you have shared us, and for the contact, those updates are about the context, and then the challenges you will face, as well as the innovative approaches you have used to improve the quality of the education system. You have also dealt with the impact of the strategies through the impressive result you have shared with us. And finally, you have talked about the role of the civil society and funding agencies to support the innovations and help reach those impressive results. And finally, you shared with us some takeaways and recommendations. Thank you very much. I think these were that was the time allocated to speakers. I'm now going to give the floor to our colleague Yvonne to see if there are some questions online. But before giving her the floor, I will ask the participants in the room if they have some reactions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My name is Sidet from Cambodia Education Ministry. I've been listening to the discussion, even we are in a different continent, but very relevant and still very valid to take into account for Cambodian education, teacher education reform as well. I'm interested in the presentation from Uganda on the national policy on teachers. I think you have articulated very well, but I would like to hear more on the relationship between teachers and school principals, you know, because in order for the policy can be well implemented based on strengthening the policy, I mean the relationship between school principal and teachers, how they can motivate, they can support, they can work together well. You know, it's about inspiring school leaders that make teachers work better. It's not really about having a strong policy imposed, you know, to those teachers. I experienced that in the case of Cambodia. Now we change into empowering school-based reform to ensure that teachers and especially new teachers can work so well with the support of the school director. That's my comment. Thank you very much. Should I pass on?
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, panelists. My name is Emmanuel Siwomana. I work for an NGO called the Wellspring Foundation for Education here in Rwanda. Would like to direct my question to the professor who presented about the program for teacher education in Uganda. As you've rightly put it, one of the challenges in teacher education is teaching experience or teaching practice. And it's not only in Uganda, but in many parts of the world where the challenge is that that particular component is supposed to help pre-service teachers to get used to the realities of the classroom, to now be able to transfer the knowledge they have acquired to the classroom to be able to influence their practices. But I would like to ask about the kind of support that they get there, because in some contexts, we've noticed that the teaching experience does not really help, does not equip these pre-service teachers with the capacity, the practical capacity they need to handle the classrooms. So you talked about continuous teaching experience and then 1 year attachment. Could you please elaborate more on the kind of support that is given, and tell us about the relevance of this support and maybe the experience of Uganda? Do you find the teaching experience in Uganda to really help these people to be able to handle the classrooms? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is all from the room. We give the floor to the professor who answers, and then we go to the participants online for their questions and comments.
Thank you for the questions. I'll start off with the second one. Issue of teaching practice. Yes, it's a challenge, like you've just mentioned. We've been having 8 weeks of school practice, and sometimes the mentorship and the supervision during the 8 weeks is not adequate, and that is why we're moving to continuous school practice, but also 1 year. Now, like you've mentioned, sometimes when you send students to the school and you get somebody from outside going periodically to visit the student, it may not be as adequate. And so the plan is that we will have somebody within the school who will mentor the students within that school. And so if you have somebody on a day-to-day basis with the student teachers, supporting them, teaching them, helping them, supervising them, even when the person from outside comes, they've got already support from within the school. So that's how we're planning to handle this. And so with the continuous school practice, it's of course the lecturers who will do it, but then the 1 year is where you'll have the students attached to mentors, and the mentors are within the schools they're practicing in. We hope it will improve. We've not yet started this. These are the things we're working on. Hopefully we'll share one day whether it's a success. Issue of relationship between principals and teachers, that again is an issue, and there are many dimensions to that. The teachers in our setting, you find there is a mark, can I say, like a superior to a lower person, because the head teacher sometimes wields a lot of power. But with the teacher policy, the issue of career path is very clear. And once the National Teacher Council comes in place, this is going to be even more clarified. But UNITA is going to have programs as well that is along the career path. So you are first of all a teacher, basic, and then you can take the career path of teaching, career path of leadership, career path, maybe you're an inspector or you're a curriculum development or etc. And then the promotion within that rank is going to be similar in terms of the money that you get. And we think that that is going to help as well, because if I can remain a teacher, but earn something that somebody who is a head teacher is earning. So that will be motivating to a teacher. Unlike today, where the head teacher gets a higher pay, and the teacher, because you remain a teacher, you don't get as much as what the head teacher is getting. It's our hope that it will change the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for this response. Now I'm going to give the floor, because we are we're almost running out of time. I'm going to give the floor to Ms. Yvonne Mboya, KIX Africa 19 Hub, for some questions online, a couple of questions online before the wrap-up session. Yvonne, are you with us?
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the presenter and the participants. There's a question from Michelle, and it is going to Professor Betty. It is wonderful to hear about Uganda schools, and I like that they have a teacher persona. Do learners have input in any areas of the curriculum they would like to explore?
Let's answer that question. Okay. Professor, again, another question.
Thank you for the question. Do learners have an input to the curriculum? Yes, through the alumni. Like in this case, we're working on teacher education curriculum. And so students who have gone through the previous curriculum are normally invited to participate in the curriculum development process. But like in this case, this is a new institution, so we worked with those who had gone through the national teachers colleges to also have a say on the curriculum that is being developed. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one more question to Alfred Chilala, and then after that we'll have a representative from Kenya. The TSC director is raising his hand. So the question to Alfred: how are the teachers taught to innovate in their teaching? Please. Thank you for a very informative presentation. So Alfred,
Yes.
how are the teachers taught to innovate?
Hello?
Hello, Alfred. Can you hear me?
Yeah, probably ask the question again. What is the question?
The question is, how are the teachers taught to innovate in their teaching?
All right, thank you so much. How teachers are being taught how to be innovative is that they also need to take a proactive role rather than waiting or rather than teaching, basing their teaching from the book point of view, but they are also encouraged at least to come up with things that can use in a classroom situation, which will help them to deliver their lessons. What I'm trying to say is that they are encouraged to be innovative. They are encouraged also to be creative in terms of coming up with the concrete materials that learners can manipulate, unlike basing their teaching on the textbooks. So creativity there is being encouraged also to be innovative.
Thank you so much, Alfred. I hope that answers the question. I was to give Mr. Madenge from Kenya an opportunity, but I've seen a question in the chat box. So I'm assuming you've already asked. Or yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want once again to ask our presenter from Uganda about the CPD. And my concern is, would she explain to us how the Ugandan teachers fund, or how the program is funded, and also who is the provider, and who also come up with the curriculum for the CPD. My second question would go to Zambia. I would wish to hear from the teacher how he's managing to teach, and also I had like he's in charge of a zone support. How does it work? Because in Kenya we have curriculum support officers who are not in the classroom, who are teachers who are good, then they become supporters. I would want to hear how he's also able to mix the two, or to handle the two, the classroom teaching and also maybe supporting others. I would, in the zone, I would wish to hear that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Madenge. Professor Betty?
Mboya, yes, this will be the last question because it is very interesting, but we are running out of time. So I give the floor to the speakers to answer the questions.
Thank you once again for the question. The issue of the curricula for CPDs, I want just to state that what I have presented, a lot of it is still what we are planning to do. we've not yet started the actual implementation. Right now, our CPDs are being organized by different entities, the development partners, but it's our expectation that when the National Teacher Council comes into place and together with UNITE, there's going to be centralization of CPDs. Already there's a curriculum framework for CPD. So when we have it coordinated at one entity, then you are aware about the kind of CPDs that will be offered. So it will be at different levels, school-based CPDs, but also maybe regional level based CPDs that will count towards the points that a teacher is expected to accumulate in order to be licensed and continue teaching as a teacher. So we don't have already a ready curriculum to say this is what we'll use. And as you're aware, CPD needs keeps changing. It depends on individual teachers, it depends on the entity. So that will be taken into consideration, but there is a framework for CPDs. Thank you.
Okay, I think the last question is for Alfred. No? Yvonne?
Yes.
Okay, please. Alfred, in 30 seconds, please.
Thank you so much. In answering the question, how I'm managing teaching and supporting others. Initially, what we do is right at the beginning of the term, we have sittings that we call grace meetings, of which they are enshrined in our work plan, where we tabulate topics that we wish to discuss with teachers. And then after having done such meetings, they are sent back to their schools, and then we do what we call in our work plan as Simon. So this is school in-service monitoring. So we do the monitorings by the help of the work plan that we do, so that I'm able to maneuver around and also trying to create time to attend to my class and also to do the support in the zone. So work planning there is very, very, very important.
Thank you so much.
Yvonne, go ahead for the wrap-up, please.
Thank you, Salu. I think now we have come to the end of this session. I would like to take this opportunity to pass my greatest appreciation to the organizers, the TTF, UNESCO, and Rwandan government, also to the presenters. Thank you very much. To Mr. Saliu, who has been on the ground, we really appreciate you and the work you're doing. And also Marianne, who is assisting, we really appreciate. Thank you to all the participants for joining us for this particular session. We appreciate and we hope that we have come out of this session with a lot of knowledge and that we can take back to our own places. So I'd like to just leave you with, I did take a lot of, a few takeaways, but because of time, I'm not sure how long I have. I would like to leave you with a few words that came from this meeting today. One, that education systems change when people across the education center begin to innovate so that they can improve their learning outcomes. And also that teacher effectiveness is the most relevant predictor of quality of learning, and that teacher reform education requires concerted effort from all the partners, and having clear policies will only make this easier. So with all that, please, thank you very much. We appreciate you and we look forward to interacting further. Salut, I don't know who will guide us on how we go back to the main session from here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Yvonne, for those wonderful words full of wisdom. I would like to add my words of thanks to yours, to thank all the speakers and all the participants. So please give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. I don't know if Maram has some information about the next thing. Not Marianne, but Maram. No. Okay, good. So thank you very much. So maybe there's coffee break, and then after there's another session, we will be informed about that. And the sections can continue in person around the coffee. Thank you.